delinquency control. Yes? What is the number?
This is a small part of the records room where most of the important cases of juvenile delinquents are kept. Every moment of the day, new reports are sent to Officer Lane and attached to the records of individual cases. At the file cabinet is Lieutenant Barry, administrator of the department. Once a week, he tells the case history of a delinquent to a group of university students, then explains underlying reasons that cause this young member of our society to become a juvenile delinquent. The story is chosen very carefully from among hundreds, so that the students will have concrete material that will help them to understand the causes of delinquency, and by that understanding will be able to help others.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. The students from the university are waiting in your office.
Thank you, Sergeant. Johnny Smith, case 4739JD. Johnny Smith, for 1929 of average parents, attended township school of native town. 13 when moved to big cities, joined neighborhood gang, first offense occurred. Stole apples from the corner market, played hooky from school. From that time on, the ominous transition from juvenile delinquent to lawbreaker was in rapid succession. He was involved in burglary, shop breaking, gang riots, robbery with violence, through a total of 4 years in training schools under the supervision of the State Rehabilitation for Juvenile Delinquents. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Now, here's an interesting and rather typical case from our files. It will make an excellent example for your studies. It's the beginning of the story of a young man accused of a crime against the society in which he lives. Now, he's taken the steps that should have been taken a long time ago. He's trying to understand what caused him to become a juvenile delinquent and later have his face among criminals. The case is not new to me, as I've watched his record grow from the time he was 14 years of age. Since he's over 21 now, his records must be transferred to the police department file.
Here's your dinner. So you were the tough kid. Well, what do you think about it now?
I keep thinking of the things that landed me here. And I keep asking myself, am I the only one guilty? Well, this is a hot one. I even get apples here. You know, it's funny how much trouble a lousy little apple or cutting school can get a guy into. Suppose you're just a kid. All of a sudden, you find yourself in a big, strange town. You sort of wonder what's at the other end of those long streets. And you hold on tight to your ma's hand because you're scared. New sights, new sounds, new smells. Those buildings are really tall. Your ma's hand is warm and reassuring. But you know, it ain't long till you want to let go. Try something on your own hook. Wonder what it'd be like from way up on top of those buildings. You could really hide out in one of them old houses. Nobody'd ever find you. Yeah, you want to let go, all right, but you don't know how. So you hold on to your ma's hand a little bit longer. Funny, but I can't remember when I did let go. Ma used to take me to a swell playground nearly every day. I met a lot of other kids there, and boy, the fun we had on the swings and the slides. Nobody cared about anybody else's looks or color or religion. They were just having fun. Too bad grown-ups can't be that way. It must have been pretty hard on Ma and Pa. And then one day, there was no more Ma. I was alone with my old man. He took me to live in another part of town. I was older then, and the district was new to me. Yeah, it was new, all right. Dirty, noisy, run down, cluttered with all kinds of people who loaf, walk the streets, pass the time in cheap bars. And we were supposed to become clean, decent citizens. Ha! First, when the bigger guys beat up on me, I couldn't understand why. Our color was the same. We dressed the same. Was it because I was smaller? Maybe. But they didn't need good reasons. Always the best. Yeah, I found a lot of things that grown-ups had invented to please themselves and to take their minds off of us kids. But that wasn't all. School was sometimes an even worse problem, especially since I was new and alone. Our teacher was okay. Better than most of them, I guess. Sometimes she'd call us up in front of the class through problems. If we did okay, she'd praise us. I always hated to be called up, though. The other kids seemed so much better than I was. They were smarter. They wore better clothes. They had a mother and a father to go home to after school. In front of the class, I couldn't think. I don't know. I felt lost. I tried, but it just wasn't any use. I was afraid the other kids would laugh at me behind my back.
As you students know, the real cause of failure back of these helpless, desperate, unhappy little people whom society has tagged delinquents is in the breakdown in their family and home life. The path to dependency or delinquency all too often starts at the doorstep of the child's home. Once Johnny's father came home after working all night and found him in bed when he should have been ready for school. Johnny and his father were not very close after his mother's death. The boy's father didn't have time for him. Maybe not because he wanted it that way, but probably because he didn't know how to go about understanding or helping the boy. Johnny learned to dislike school, so he played sick. But he'd used that excuse too many times before. Johnny's youthful desire was to be a Boy Scout. His father wouldn't listen. Runs into too much expense, he said. To heal the wounds of this refusal, Johnny turned to other young boys and hung about the neighborhood. It was one way for understanding and companionship. Home must mean more than food and shelter for children. There must be warmth and a feeling of happiness and relaxation. His father was not an educated or strong-willed person. Perhaps he was lonely. He lost faith in everything and turned to what lots of people call their best friend. The home was neglected. Usually there was little food in the house. Johnny was left to care for himself, while his father clung to one last thread of dignity in hopes of giving Johnny something he had never had, an education and a chance to be somebody. Johnny often played hooky from school without his father's knowledge. The note was sent to his father questioning his absence. Johnny would destroy it. One day, however, he forgot to destroy a note from the teacher. His father became angry. Instead of asking for an explanation and trying to help, he would beat the boy. Johnny knew it was wrong. Being young, he thought it all right to lie once in a while, especially to avoid punishment. Into the juvenile court come children from the rich as well as the poor classes, broken, neglected, pampered, but all misunderstood, all temperamentally unadjusted.
I was glad when I met those mugs from the neighborhood gang that morning. Going with them was one way of getting even with the world. I forgot about school that day. We started out looking for something to do. My big friends were nuts about apples, especially the kind they didn't have to pay for. I had to earn their respect. This is how I did it. They felt guilty about my stealing apples for them. They didn't want to get caught, so they cut out on me. I found out that stealing fruit and stuff like that was one of the favorite sports of all gangs, and they were pretty slick. The first time I did it, my two friends didn't even try to play it safe. Sure, I was scared at first, especially when they scrammed and left me alone, but I was pretty slick myself, and old Smitty didn't even see me. I remember hearing a siren somewhere in the neighborhood. I was scared for a second. I'll bet my friends were, too. I figured they'd be hiding. It's a wonder they even stuck around for me. And I thought they were a couple of big shots and not scared of nothing. I knew they wouldn't push me around again. Maybe snitching those apples doesn't sound like much of a crime, but it's those little things that get a guy started. He finds out he can get away with those. He wants to try big things and be big time. Yeah. Before I was a punk kid to them. But I had their respect now. Swiping apples and cutting school was like taking a bite out of something new. Well, I'd played hooky from one school and already started on another. Crime school.
Yeah, always the same story.
Now here's a chart that lists the major causes of juvenile delinquency. Here's how our Johnny Smith fits into this chart. Rejection. When a child feels rejected or unloved by his parents, this is often true when the parents, for some reason, fail to give the child proper recognition and affection. In cases where there's only one parent or where the child was not actually wanted, and the parents consciously or unconsciously reflect an attitude of rejection.
Yeah, that's right.
Erratic discipline. These are situations where, in the mind of the child, discipline is inconsistent and is imposed unfairly or without due regard for the causes motivating the alleged misbehavior. Feeling of inferiority and inadequacy. This may result from numerous types of situations such as comparisons with brighter and more capable children, continual references to inadequacies, with little or no mention of any favorable traits, deprivation of companionship. This is common in broken homes where parents, because of business or selfishness, fail to get the child's trust and understanding, and neglect to show the needed love and affection which children seek. The juvenile authorities are doing everything in their power to help these young people, but what are we, the individuals, doing to understand and help these unfortunate young citizens? Now, keeping the story in mind, let's have the panel discuss what can be done to prevent another case like the one of Johnny Smith, juvenile delinquent.